The first thing that I always do as an educator when before I start a conversation with kids, and this is something that I've kind of built over time, and I kind of have lost awareness that I do this, but if I'm really specific and careful about what I do, what I'm thinking about my process, I actually pause and check in with myself. To make sure that the way I'm coming off, or the tone that I have, or the way in which I'm interacting is a way that is calm and comes from a place of non-judgment, and is able to allow the kids to show up as they are, and it's okay to be where they are in their emotions, and that we can actually have a conversation as a group and each person's voice can be heard. So that's like number one, right? So then after that, it's about asking the kids to stop and take a pause and change the scenery. So if they're in the middle of something and they're in a conflict, I'll ask them to stop what they're doing and ask us to go to another area that feels safe, because at recess there's a lot going on, there's a lot spinning around. Kids are playing in all different areas, running around. And so maybe going to a side of the play area where there might be a table or a bench or somewhere to sit as a group, and just say, what is it that just happened, and asking each person to be able to express what they needed in this situation, what they were looking for. Especially if there's a game that they're playing, one of the first questions I ask are, what are the rules? Does everyone know what the rules are? And if they don't know, that's the first step to say, well, now it's time to start sharing what the rules are and getting into an agreement about what the rules are. Educator, whether it's yourself or someone in the building that can be a support, is to actually have a group outside of recess or during recess that actually chips away at the problem. So it's really difficult in the moment when there's the conflict to actually resolve it. So what needs to happen is that there's some space that's created in the program, in the school structure, that allows for kids to resolve issues at a certain time in the school day, so that they can, like I said, chip away at the issue in baby steps. So whether that's an EQ class, whether that's during a self-science class or a social-emotional learning class, whether that is during a morning meeting, that's a time when a teacher can address that issue, and so chipping away a bit at that, or whether that's having someone work at recess with this group and having them commit to wanting to resolve that. I actually talked with a group of boys where there was a pattern that was happening. They're in first grade, and when I sat down with them to talk about an incident that happened at recess where they wanted to play a certain game and one person had rules around it, the other one didn't understand the rules, and so they were constantly brushing up against each other. When we sat down to talk about it and I asked them what they needed, it was so interesting how they got so honest around how they needed the other person to listen, they needed the other person to value their idea, they needed to feel like they could contribute to the group, and these are all real basic human needs, right? And so actually having a space and a time for them to hear that from each other and think about how they could resolve those problems and contribute ideas into creating solutions on, what could they do to better listen to each other? What could the rules be to include each other? How could they even just think about each other's needs? It's just time and intention. And I think that's what a morning meeting can do. That's what a self-science class, a social-emotional class can provide. The main thing is really intention, time, dropping judgment, allowing ideas and emotions to be talked about and heard, and really acknowledging that each person's perspective is important, to value each person's perspective, and to honor what individuals' needs are, and then also respect what is important to the community, for the community to feel safe. And so those are kind of having classroom agreements, having school agreements and guidelines. So those can anchor students as a community, but then also notice where individuals, perspectives and needs that come into play. Because there's a lot of dynamics, there's a lot of different things that happen every day, emotions that happen, they come up, and we have to value them.
Great. Thanks, Katie.
Yeah.